Hey everybody, so I went to the store this week and there was literally no bagels on the shelf at all in the store, and I was like, hey, one of my great friends, Jade, makes bagels all the time. Why don't I open one of the 1,000 cookbooks I have and look for a bagel recipe? And looky there, I have a bagel recipe right there for whole wheat bagels. So I decided, let's try it out and see if I can make them half as good as my friend Jade. Now this bagel recipe uses the bread machine to get the dough going. Basically, you add all of your ingredients into the bread machine and let it knead it together, but you take the dough out of the bread machine before the dough starts to proof. So it just saves some time for kneading and getting all of the ingredients together. A tip I have when you're following any bread recipe is when it tells you to add water, make sure you add the hottest water that your tap will run. I learned that from somebody years ago and it's made my bread so much nicer. Also, don't mind me using two different types of yeast. I have a bread machine yeast that is on its way out and then some fresh yeast, so I've been splitting the two into all of the bread and doughs that I make. So there you go, I put everything in the bread machine, I'll let it knead together, and while that's kneading, I'll start to prepare the other stuff that I will need in about half an hour when the dough is ready, and that is a baking sheet. You want a baking sheet and you're going to lightly grease it. Lots of times I use coconut oil when I'm greasing my pans and things, but today I used vegetable oil. I just spray it down. If you ever go to Dollarama and see one of these oil spritzer things, I paid $4 for this and I freaking love it because I never use any of those aerosol oil things. I just don't like the garbage that they create. So yeah, go get one of those from Dollarama, honestly. It's lasted me for a really long time. I love it. Now, depending on how old your bread machine is or where you live, your dough might look like this when you've added all the ingredients. I live in Canada and it's the winter right now, so my house is really dry with the heating and everything on. So many times I just have to add a little bit more water and scrape the sides a bit, and then everything will come together and the dough will be more smooth and even. Here I am just scraping the sides. Don't be scared to stick your spoon in your bread machine. Just don't hit the paddle in the middle and everything will be fine. Okay, but I actually don't recommend sticking your hand in there. Don't do that. While the dough is kneading, just get a little pot of water ready on the stove. I've got a medium saucepan here and I put a tablespoon of sugar. We will use this later when our bagels are proofed. And here I failed and forgot to press record while shaping the bagel dough, so here is a quick reenactment! So you're going to take your dough out of your bread machine pan and you're going to sprinkle some flour on the counter. And then your dough will look like this, a big lump, and you're going to shape it into this log shape, a very uniform log shape. And then what I want you to do is I want you to chop your log shape right down the middle, right smack dab in the middle, and then chop each of those halves in half, and then chop every single piece in half again, and then you will have 8 bagel sections. I hope you enjoyed that reenactment. Also, I'm sorry I didn't hit record. Anyways, I did notice in time to show you how I shape my bagels. Here you can see my last piece of dough that I've chopped up, and you just stick your thumbs into the middle of your little bagel piece and it opens up like the hole in a bagel. Ta-da! See, you didn't need to see the real dough anyway. This was fine. This worked perfectly. Here are my bagels all ready to go into our boiling sugar water. But before we can put them into the boiling water, they need to proof for a little while. And again, this depends on where you live, how hot your house is, and all of that. So it could take anywhere from 45 minutes to a little over an hour in the winter in my house. I mean, my house is fairly cold, but if you live somewhere warmer, they might proof much faster. Once your bagels have finished proofing and they are the size that you think you're gonna like them and they look all nice and fluffy, it's time to turn your sugar water on and get it to a rolling boil, and also turn on your oven so it's preheating as well. Once your water is boiling, it's time for us to start dunking those bagels. You need to boil your bagels for just a couple seconds on each side because it helps to set the crust and kind of give your bagels that smooth, shiny look and texture on the outside. So I've got a spoon that is easy for me to use and flip the bagels in that boiling water, and you only want to have them in there for, I would say, 10 seconds aside. Like, it's not long at all. You don't want to boil the dough so that it starts falling apart or getting too soggy. You just plop it in there, count to 10, flip it over, count to 10 again, and move on to the next one. Here is a closer look at what I'm doing. You can see it just kind of floats on the top there. And then once the 20 seconds are up, I kind of shake the excess water off and then plop it right back over on my greased baking tray. Now, I bet a lot of you are wondering, hey, Brittany, these are just plain whole wheat bagels. My family's not going to eat plain whole wheat bagels. Well, during the dough stage, you can add things like finely chopped onions into the dough, or a little bit of onion powder or cinnamon and things like that. Just make sure it's not too heavy so that your bagels won't be able to rise. And I have a secret. As a teen, I used to work in a pretty famous bagel store in my area, and all of the bagels were actually plain, just with the toppings like the sesame seeds, the onions, the cheese and everything on top. All you have to do is spritz your bagel with a little bit of water, put your toppings on top, and then put them in the oven to bake. Now that everything's been boiled for 20 seconds, we're going to put them right into the oven, and they're going to cook in there for about 15 minutes. And this is what they look like when they are finished. I use a little spatula to get them off of the pan while they're still warm. And they should sound hollow when you flick them, and you can see that they're really hard and they have that nice shiny crusty outside like bagels from the store do. And there you go. Even when the grocery store is completely out of bagels, you can still have some fresh, delicious whole wheat bagels at home. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'm a busy mom posting whenever I can, and I'll be happy to chat with you in the comments below.